Okay, so now welcome everybody to the shifting landscapes of the Dynamics 365 user interface and user experience. So what you will probably have realized from the discussions that were had in the keynote session is that there's been quite a huge change over the last year in what the first-party apps, the Dynamics 365 apps have actually experienced as far as their user interface and user experience. And what we're going to be going into in 2025 is that whole identification that was mentioned in the keynote experience. So what this session is going to look at is it's going to look at this journey for the last 13 months through a particular lens that I noticed, and effectively the journey and the rabbit holes that it took me down, which has led to effectively where we are now today. So obviously the first thing we do is we need to thank our sponsors, because without our sponsors we would actually not be here. So much appreciate Olympic 33, HR2, DXC Technology, and of course Microsoft themselves. Now, who am I? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sharon Smith. I am a Dynamics 365 solution architect. I am working for ANS Group, and we are based in the UK. I have 8+ years experience with the Dynamics 365 apps. I work across both global and national projects at ANS Groups, specializing in the customer experience and customer service apps. I am also the lead architect on ANS Group's Microsoft Fast Track Portfolio program. This is a program which is seeing Microsoft move all its sponsored programs and interactions with clients over to their Success by Design. So here at ANS, we run all our projects, not just those that are engaged with Fast Track at a high level, but all our enterprise projects are run under Success by Design principles. I'm also a member of ANS Group's Squirrel Club. We are an internal group of volunteers who support and promote those of us with neurodiversities. If you haven't already, you can find me on LinkedIn, and please do connect with me on LinkedIn. My blog is on my personal Heuristic Dev website, and I am also the hugely proud founder of the International Dynamics Rockstars, which those of you who've been on track 2 before this will have had great fun noticing all the Dynamics Rockstars that were through Boone's presentation. So let's have a quick look at today's agenda. We'll look at where we were in part 1 of this long journey, this 13-month journey, as I said, where we then went in part 2, spotlight on the dwell times, and at that point we will transfer over into the live system, where I will demo you through the Copilot immersive homepage before we come back out, look at Copilot for Sales and Project Sophia, which will then lead us into the future and AI and the autonomous agents that we heard mentioned in the keynote already today. So this is the shifting landscapes, meet the shifting landscapes. So it started off its life as a blog post last November, and that's November 2023, about changes that I'd actually seen to the then new field service work order form. Now, we'll come to more on that later, but the blog post that I did then posed the question of whether or not the changes that were introduced with that new form signalled, and it was quite contentious of me to say this at the time, the death knell of what was then the ubiquitous business process flow, which in Dynamics 365, for those of you who are used to the app, it was everywhere. And that generated some quite interesting comments and reflections on my blog post on LinkedIn. We had some good discussions through those comments, and that made me wonder, well, were we actually seeing something which was actually much more fundamental than just changes happening to the field service work order form? something which was more transformational in the way that we were working with the out-of-the-box Dynamics business applications. So that then led me into the 2024 release wave 1, and along some of my ANS teammates on an away day that we had, it led my brain down rabbit holes, diverse brain, which then all seemed to lead into a similar direction. Now, it also led me to a story that I thought others would be interested in actually hearing. And in a moment of madness, I finally succumbed and submitted a session to the UK Dynamics 365 and Power Platform user groups meeting, which was being held in London on the 28th of February. And I basically turned up to the Microsoft's offices in Paddington. And as you can see, I had an absolutely extremely enjoyable experience for me and hopefully my very well informed and engaged audience. You can see here on this slide. They became my co-travelers with me on the exploration of Microsoft's changing landscape for the Dynamics apps. So, what did we actually first start to see back in February? So this is effectively those first hints that we saw prior to February in the 2023 release wave 2, the field service app. Now, it was introduced into general availability, a refreshed user experience to manage work orders and 2 new work order forms. So what you'll see is on the left-hand side screenshot here, you'll see the old way that the work order forms used to be displayed, the old business process flow that you would have, and the old 3-column form that was just ubiquitous to us. But the new form that it was introduced completely transformed. Gone was the business process flow, gone was the absolute common experience of having the timeline centered down that middle column. You had 2 columns. The timeline was actually put on its own tab, which you can see there up on the tabs. And what you also had was this new dynamic work form on the right-hand side there. Now, this dynamic card for bookings would actually change depending on whether or not you were looking at a booking that was waiting to be scheduled, one that had been scheduled and the technician was basically on their way to the job, or if the job was completed. And depending on what the stage of that job was in, the information on that dynamic booking card changed. And so it's giving the agent who was actually managing that work order relevant information based on the status. And this was all driven by Copilot, which was gathering the information and displaying it in the dynamic booking card. So whereas before you had static information that was moving along the business process flow, now you had dynamic information, which was basically telling you, for example, where the technician was, where they were going to their next call, how long they expected the job to take. Big transformation in the quality of the information being provided. So from there, I went out into the other apps and to have a look at what was going on in the other apps. We moved over onto the sales app and we saw again a comprehensive change away. Again, you can see you've got on the left-hand side with these sequence steps, you've lost the business process flow again. And instead you now have in the sales accelerator, the new grouping of sequence functionality. Now, this is it's described as a way of helping sellers to be laser focused, to act effectively in a timely manner to qualify leads and nurture opportunities by following a predefined set of consecutive actions reflecting their sales organization's best practices, which, to be honest, that sounds like a business process flow, doesn't it? But what you have here is you actually have a sequence of steps, which is in that right-hand pop-out side panel, which once you're finished looking at that sequence, you can just click on the button again and it will close back up again, releasing you out the full real estate of your screen back into your 2 or 3 columns, depending on how you've got it configured. And the other amazing thing with these sequence steps was that whereas with a business process flow, really the process flow was owned by the owner of the record. Now with these sequence steps, you can actually have each individual sequence steps owned by different users, by different salespeople in your sales sequence. So you can bring a team of sales agents together to actually effectively come together in order to get that deal across the line. They might have different specialities and they can each effectively take on different tasks within that sequence and do those tasks individually, or as you can now, because you can have multiple sequence steps running alongside each other, which was an improvement that got introduced in wave 2, I believe. Now you can actually have a couple of sequence steps running alongside each other. So you might have something which is one part of a deal and something which is another part of the deal, which you don't want to have effectively in one long sequence. You want to have them running consecutively, and you can show those sequence steps consecutively, and you can identify which agent or which sales manager even is actually working on which part of the deal at any particular point in time. The other change that you saw on the right hand side though is you also saw that Microsoft recognized that despite all these changes it was making to the first party apps, that there was still an appetite to have the qualification process of qualifying leads into opportunities. Now, for those of you who might not actually be used to the sales app, the dynamic sales app, this is where you take a contact or an immature contact, as they're known as, a lead, who might have had a look at a website or had a certain limited amount of engagement, but then you see that they're increasing their engagement with the company, and they get to a point whereby it's decided that they're ready to move from effectively a marketing lead into a sales lead, and they're ready to actually have more interaction with those sales agents. But what Microsoft decided to do is it decided to turn that final, it's not going to be going anywhere, ubiquitous business process flow of lead to opportunity into an agile lead qualification. So what it's done is it's given more power to the administrators in how they actually set up this business process flow. So at the moment, you can set it up whereby you can decide whether or not, as you can see on the configuration screen on the right-hand side, whether or not you want it to be all the creation of the contact record, if there is a contact record to be created, the account and the opportunity, whether or not that's going to happen automatically, or if you want to have some of that still left in the control of the sales agent to do. The other big change you'll see there is that you've also got the ability to introduce additional fields that you want to take across from the lead into the opportunity. And this is really important, especially as far as custom fields are concerned. So you can choose up to 7 custom fields that you might have put on your lead that you can bring across into your opportunity. And as you go from lead to opportunity, Copilot will be there to create a summary of your lead, and they will put that in your timeline as the first item in your timeline to say, this is a summary of what happened on that lead. We are now in the opportunity. So from there, some other things that we actually looked at is you can't look at sales without actually looking at marketing through the same lens. Now, there wasn't actually any reference to it in the Wave 1 documentation, which was quite interesting. But when you looked at the release highlights videos, it had this co-pilot feature that is Customer Insights Project Board, which you see on the left-hand side here, taking central stage early on in that video. Now, from the project board, it was at that time, it was in early release. Now it's in public preview, I believe, not available yet into general availability, but it's getting there. But what marketers can do is they can view the campaign's target audience and segments, as well as recommendations from Copilot for additional segments that may not have been previously considered. So how do you do this? Well, what you can do is you can either, in natural language, say, I want a marketing campaign that will do X, Y, Z, and Copilot will generate it for you. Or you can put your deal review in as a document. You can load a document into the project board, and Copilot will look at that document and it will create all the suggested audience segments automatically with a personalized customer journey, saving marketers huge amount of time. It also partners with Typeface to enable the production of all the brand aligned content as well, themes, fonts, product images from a central asset library, all the emails, all basically in the branding of the organization. So, a huge amount of potential saving of time for marketeers when the project board comes online, hopefully, cross fingers, in 2025. And of course, you can't talk about the generative AI in business applications, which is what you see powering the project board, without considering Project Sophia, which back in February, it was described as an AI-first business application designed to refine what business apps can look like in a future powered by AI. Now, I'm not going to say any more about this because this is a big spoiler alert. We're going to come to Project Sophia at the end of this presentation because Project Sophia is part of the future. Now, there is only so much you can actually cover in a 45-minute session, and that was as much as I could cram into February. So 4 months later, I returned to London to visit some of the apps that was missing from that initial session, and also to build on some of the journey stops from that part one. Now, back in February, it was my first ever presentation as a speaker in person, or as a speaker full stop. And I was nervous, but I knew the venue. I'd been there as an attendee a few times, and so I was quite comfortable, rocking up. And I had a number of my ANS colleagues there with me to give me moral support. Come June, however, we were in a new venue. We were in King's College London Strand campus. And I found out from the agenda that the room I'd been allocated to was called Safra Hall. So I had a look on the King's College's website because I thought that was a bit strange. I mean, am I going to be like giving my presentation in the hall where you have your coffee? I mean, are they that short of rooms? But no, what I've actually found out was that the hall wasn't actually a hall at all. It was actually the Edmund J. Safra Lecture Theatre. So for my second presentation ever, I went from a lovely cozy room into presenting to a lecture theatre. Quite a different experience on the big stage. So what did we actually show on the big stage? Well, Minding the Gaps. This was very much an acknowledgement that it isn't actually all about the wave releases. And I think we're seeing Microsoft themselves moving in this direction, whereby certainly if you look at the Customer Insights Journeys app, really you get a month-by-month release of something which can be very dynamic in its changes month by month. And one of the things we saw back in June was that the Microsoft Fast Track Solution Architects who look after the Dynamics Customer Service app they had put out a series of tech talk videos, which was showcasing what they called the revolutionary optimization tools that they had been developing. The first of which, back at that point, was agent scripts. And agent scripts was seen as playing a crucial role in minimizing human errors during the case resolution process by ensuring agents know which business process actions they need to perform next when they interact with their customers. So how do they actually go about this? And they do this. So again, it's all about bringing that data into the process. Slugs and OData queries are used to pass contextual information about the customer record that you are actually in, the customer who is on the call or in the text SMS messaging that you're having, and their case, and bring that information into text steps, which the sidebar that you can actually see in that top right hand corner will actually give you to tell the agent what their next step should actually be. It can literally be a matter of telling them how to actually talk to that customer, to actually say, hi, whoever the customer is, thank you for contacting us. This example that Microsoft themselves you give here, we will work together to find a solution. Very painful. There's a lot better options out there, but you can bring that information and the different ways that you can actually engage with the customer, depending on if they are, for example, a priority customer, that you might engage with them in a different way to a customer who you've had hardly ever any engagement with at all. The other really good thing about agent scripts is it isn't just about a matter of running through a text script of things that the agent on the call needs to say. It also includes macros. So if an agent is working through this script and it pulls in that there is, for example, an outstanding order, the agent can trigger a macro which will go and chase that order asynchronously in the background. And that asynchronous action, it could take minutes, hours, or even days, depending on what needs to be done. But the agent can leave it for the macro to deal with in the background, tell the customer that it's being chased up and that the customer will automatically be advised of what's the outcome of that chase is, because the macro will go from reaching out to the supplier to find out what's going on. The supplier replies to the macro, and through the Power Automate, it brings it back in, and it can then trigger off another Power Automate to generate a email, which will go off to, or whatever the preferred method of contact is, to go off to the customer to notify the customer of what the latest situation is with their product or their service or whatever it is that is being chased up. So when you think about it, what we actually know about autonomous agents, agent scripts, back in June, this was it's the start of it, isn't it? It's like baby autonomous agents. It's autonomous agents now. They're going to be able to learn from what they're doing and to be able to decide the next steps for themselves without us having to program them. But agent scripts was the beginning. It was where we were laying out all the programs, showing them the way, and this is where we are now leading on to. Another example of Microsoft's product team going from strength to strength is with the Sales Copilot homepage. Now, this has evolved from an expanded workspace that appeared to be little more than a wrapper back in June into a Copilot assistant homepage that works in sync with the Copilot chat pane. I'm not going to say think more about that because I want to actually show you this in the system in person, because this, to my mind, is a huge game changer for the way that we interact with our Dynamics data. So we will get to that very soon. Copilot Studio. I mean, it is everywhere now. it is the single conversational AI tool that you can use to create your own custom co-pilots or extend Microsoft Copilot's experiences with your own enterprise data and scenarios. I'm not going to spend time talking about this because you all will know about co-pilots with the agent capabilities from the keynote speech that was given by Microsoft first thing. But it was where we were back in June, and you can see this was the first revelation of where things were going from Microsoft Build's Copilot agent announcements back in June. They were the standout announcements at that time. And hot off the heels of those announcements came the first ever contact center as a service in the form of the Dynamics Contact Center, which you see on the right-hand side. And I've never seen anything like this. This literally went from not knowing anything about it whatsoever, well, certainly from those of us who aren't MVPs, literally going straight into general availability on the 1st of July in a matter of days, seemingly almost in a matter of days. And the thing about the contact center, it's the latest milestone in Microsoft's vision for the modernization and evolution of its own customer service and support teams using generative AI. This came out of Microsoft learning effectively from the way it was running its own contact centers, so that now we actually see it infused through the contact center workflow, its communication channels, self-service, intelligent routing, agent assisting service and operations. This is all Microsoft learning from the way it runs its own business coming into the offering for the Dynamics 365 contact center. So another key announcement that we saw during May, completely different, was that Microsoft were evolving its certifications for Dynamics 365. The announcement was to help ensure that the skills related to Microsoft's AI apps and services, the cloud and other emerging technologies validated, and that the certification journey is streamlined to provide a more straightforward path for professionals to prove their technical skills. You were starting to see Microsoft change the way that they were talking about themselves, and they were starting to talk about themselves as an AI organization. So what we have is we have 3 certificates: the sales qualification, the customer insights journey qualification, and the customer insights data qualifications, all being retired and all coming together into this one new Microsoft certified Dynamics 365 customer experience analyst associate, which all of those of us who are in the area will just call the MB280. And this is basically them bringing all these multiple scenario-based qualifications into one, and recognizing that really having multiple questions, as anybody who's done any of these exams will know, multiple questions to try and actually, test your knowledge and your ability to actually deliver something which, certainly as far as the customer insights journeys is concerned, it's a training piece. It's not something that you go out and you configure. And so the wonderful thing that we do see with this is we do see that we are going to get multiple scenario-based applied skills accreditations coming alongside this new qualification that we've got, so that we can actually get in and actually prove by doing the actual creating and managing journeys and creating and managing segments to prove that we know what we're doing. So back in June, the obvious question that was in my neuro mind was, bringing all these qualifications together, does that mean to see that we're going to see something similar happening with the apps themselves? Because back in 2023 release wave 2, there was a goal that was actually announced as part of the investment areas of the unification of sales and marketing. But when you looked at 2020 release wave, 2024 release wave 1, that was gone. So back in June, when I was talking to the lovely people in the lecture theatre, I was saying to them, I don't think so. But of course, what I should have done is I should have given the consultant's answer, which was, it depends. Because if you now look at the 2024 release wave 2 investment areas, we're back again talking about bringing sales and marketing together to create an enriched, comprehensive view of every customer to empower sellers and marketers to be more successful. So we'll see. Now, that brings me through to where I got with my blogging that was supporting my speaking at the time. And having gone through and done a number of blogs through Heuristic Dev about the 2024 release wave 2, I started to do some deeper dives in what I call dwell times, because dwell times, it's a railway term that is actually used to describe when you have an extended stay in a station for one reason or another. So it all seemed part of the journey. And one of those dwell times that I decided to take, focusing on the customer service and customer experience specialities, was on this Copilot immersive homepage. So what I'm actually going to do, hopefully this will work, is I'm going to just bring across and down, and I hope this now, if somebody could confirm that you're actually seeing the Dynamics 365 Sales Hub with the Copilot homepage.
Yes.
Wonderful, excellent, wonderful. So this is my own personal, as you can see up here, my own personal dev system. And this is the Dynamics Sales Hub and the Copilot. Now, anybody who's ever spun up a sales trial will know that up until earlier on in this year, you would automatically come into the sales accelerator, and your normal homepage before we had Copilot would have been, and apologies if this is a little bit on the slow side to actually get there, it will be, it would give you the sales accelerator, and it would give you your work list, and your work list would be effectively telling you as best as it could what accounts or opportunities you should be looking at, basically dependent on the information that was in the timeline mainly. But now, because we now have Copilot, we have this immersive homepage. Now, when the immersive homepage was first introduced back in February, as I said, it was just more like a wrapper, because you didn't have these prompts up here at that point. You did have your box down here where you could type in your natural language questions, but a lot of sales agents, and sales managers, they said, well, I'm not quite sure how I'm actually going to or should be interrogating the data. I'm not, I need some help. I need a prompt. So what Microsoft did is it provided 6 prompts to start with. And obviously, because this is Copilot, you can go into Copilot Studio and you can extend this yourself. And if you want different prompts here, you can actually develop it so that you can have different prompts here or additional prompts here yourself. So as a seller, you've got the get information prompts, the ask question prompts, and then the stay ahead prompts. So get information prompts, probably the most common one is, I want to see my pipeline. I want to actually see my deal tracker. I want to see my sales funnel. What deals have I actually got coming up? So if I hover over any one of these, it will tell me effectively what that account is, and it will tell me where it is sitting in the pipeline phase, its expected close date, its current status, and also its estimated revenue. So I can literally, as a sales agent, come in here, quickly look over and say, okay, yep, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. It also gives me my top 5 deals, the ones that I need to focus on, the ones that are most important to me. And if I look at my number 1 deal, I can come over here and I can say, give me a summary, and Copilot will straight away be in there. It will go into that opportunity and it will pull out all that information, the most important information for me to actually know, and it will just summarize it in that key information. If I need more product insights, those product insights and also those competitor insights are there for me. Brilliant. What other information might I need as a sales agent coming in here Monday morning? Well, how about what's going on in the wider world? Let's get the latest information. So out it goes, as in Copilot, and it goes and searches Bing, using Bing on the web, finding the news stories that are out there for my top accounts, and it brings it in here. If I want to know about any of these, I can just click on it and it will take me to Reuters, or it will take me to, Bradenton Herald, and it will give me that information depending on obviously what that news story is. So as a salesperson, I can look at my accounts and I can know immediately what's going on in that broader ecosphere with my accounts. Coming back up here, if I want to actually have a look at my number 1 pro grinders for Northwind traders, and obviously as you've probably noticed by now, this is Microsoft's trial data that I'm using here. I can just click on that and it takes me straight into that opportunity. But, and obviously we do still, because it is the whole, as we mentioned before, lead to opportunity business process, I've still got my business process flow here. But what I also do have is if I come over here and bring Copilot back open again, what you'll actually notice from the Copilot side pane now is that all that information that we were looking at in the home page, it's all here. It's been pulled in across, and this didn't happen back in February. This was missing. So that's when I said it would seem just like a wrapper, is that you could have that conversation in the wider homepage. You could then come into the record, but then that was it. It was like all that ability to have that conversation with Copilot was lost to you. Whereas now the product team, they took notice of the feedback that was given to them. Not only did they give you starter prompts to be able to start having that conversation with Copilot, it also made sure that Copilot came with you, and as you go into the record, it comes with you across into the Copilot sidebar. So that summary, for example, it's still there. If I say, for example, wanted to have a look at that competitor insights, and I wanted to go and have a look at Van Anstel, if I click on that, the details about Van Anstel come up here in as the competitor record, but over here on my Copilot, I've still got that summary for my main account over here. So I haven't lost that information that is accessible to me, even though as far as, what is the opportunity that I'm looking at when I'm looking at that competitor. So I can compare it side by side. And that is a big change to me. This is a big change about the way that you're able to actually interact with the data. And of course, I can then carry on down here and continue to have that conversation with Copilot. Really, really a big change in my view from the way that you actually engage with that information. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take the system back out because, as I said, the other thing I wanted to talk about, Copilots is huge. It's huge for Dynamics. And obviously we've had the announcement also that we are getting agents coming into Dynamics as well, and we're getting autonomous agents, specific predefined autonomous agents that are going to be coming into the Dynamics apps, as we heard in this morning. Public preview in December with general availability early in 2025. Yeah, very, very fast, very fast. But there is a layer between those two. And as I said earlier on, that layer is Project Sophia. Now, as I said, back in February, come June, Project Sophia, it was being described as an infinite research canvas. But what they've done, and what I've actually learned about Project Sophia here, and that I'm sharing with you now, is the learning that I actually took from attending Scottish Summit two weeks ago, and actually attending an absolutely excellent session there delivered by Microsoft, where they were actually showing us what the future for Project Sophia is going to look like, because Project Sophia is coming into Dynamics, it's coming into every single one of the first-party apps. Its first stop is Copilot. We have in Copilot for Sales, we basically, it's going, Project Sophia in Copilot for Sales, it's bringing in that level above, in my opinion, it's coming in above the individual user, the individual sales agent, and it's bringing this infinite information about a particular client or your whole sales pipeline in for the supervisors and the managers level. So how does it do that? Well, what it does is, and these are effectively the slides from a demonstration that was provided by Donna Saka, which is available, and I can provide anybody who's interested with the link to that presentation. Effectively, as Donna called it, Project Sophia, born in AI Copilot. And at the moment, as I said, it's only available in Copilot for Sales, and at the moment it is only available for closing deals faster, this sales and marketing part here, but it's coming all these lovely places. And so what does it do? Well, what it does is it pulls all that information you've got in your dynamic system, as you can see here. It brings all that information in. It also allows you to augment that information in your dynamic system with data from other systems, bragging it. And it, you know, for example, as you can see here, it's bringing in the sales history information that you might have. Effectively, you don't want to have that sitting in your dynamics, using up a lot of room in your data. You might have taken it out into a SQL server and put it into cold storage, but now you want to effectively grab hold of that information and bring it in, you know, retrieval, augmented generation of this information. And it gives you this, well, I mean, for want of a better descriptive, it's an AI generated account planning, as it says over here, where it will give you an account plan summary. It will tell you what the monthly projected usage over time is. It will tell you the number of opportunities by sales territory, your top 5 companies with the highest total consumption. This is across all your sales data, remember, your high performing accounts, your account prioritization for increased growth, and then an action plan for each. And if you think about this information, if you think that, you know, this can actually tell a supervisor which accounts are doing well, which accounts are not doing well, so that they can actually then support those agents that need additional support to get those deals across the line. But in addition, this kind of like textual information, this is brilliant information to put into a report to the board. So your C-suite, if they want to have information going out to them, they can have this information just grabbed out of here. And instead of having a data analyst having to actually provide that information, this information is sitting there in Project Sophia, inside Copilot for Sales, and it can be just grabbed out here, popped into an email, popped into a report, and sent off to your board. And it's done. No time whatsoever. And that, to my mind, is the middle piece between Copilot and between what we're seeing with agentification is Project Sophia. And where I'm going to be going and what I'm going to be doing for the next 12 months is I'm going to be following Project Sophia. I'm going to be following the agentification and those new dynamic AI agents that are coming into Dynamics and seeing where it takes us. And that, to my mind, is what is exciting for me for the next 12 months for the Dynamics user interface. Thank you. Any questions?
No questions. Thanks for sharing, Sharon.
Wonderful.
Highlights
No,
for
my
you as
pleasure.
well.